Whispers of the past, the morning fog, clung to Josephine Carter's windshield as she navigated the winding coastal road. Her son Theo sat in the back seat, humming along to the radio while flipping through a dog-eared science textbook. Years old, was already showing the same keen intelligence and curiosity that had drawn her to his father all those years ago. "Mom, did you know the human heart beats about 100,000 times a day?" Theo's voice pierced through her thoughts. Josephine smiled into the rearview mirror. "That's a lot of work for one organ. And it's mostly electrical signals that make it happen. Like there's this thing called the sinoatrial node that's basically the heart's natural pacemaker." His eyes sparkled with excitement behind his glasses. "It's like the heart has its own brain. Is that what you're learning in science class?" she asked, turning onto the street that led to Oak Ridge Elementary. "Nah, this is just for fun." He closed the book and shoved it into his backpack. "Miss Patterson says I ask too many questions." Josephine laughed. "There's no such thing as too many questions, kiddo." As she pulled up to the school drop-off lane, Theo leaned forward between the seats. "Hey, Mom, can we get pizza tonight?" "It's Friday. Sure thing. Don't forget your lunch." She handed him the paper bag from the passenger seat. He took it then. Hesitated. "Hey, parent career day is next week. I was wondering if maybe, you could ask Uncle David to come, since he's a firefighter and all. That would be pretty cool." Josephine felt the familiar tightness in her chest. "Thought you wanted me to come talk about the bookstore?" "Your job is cool too," he said quickly, not meeting her eyes. "But the other kids keep talking about their dads coming, and I just thought, double quotes," he trailed off, shrugging. "I'll call David," she promised, reaching back to squeeze his hand. "Scoot before you're late." She watched him dash up the steps, his unruly dark hair, so like his father's, bouncing with each step. Theo never directly asked about his father anymore, but the questions came in other ways. It's in the way he'd study men with dark hair and green eyes when they visited the bookstore, in the way he'd linger on medical shows on TV, in the forms he'd leave blank when school projects mentioned family trees. Josephine drove 2 title pages, a small bookstore she'd opened 4 years ago when they moved to Heron Bay. The morning passed in a comfortable routine of unpacking shipments, arranging displays, and helping the occasional customer find the perfect read. It was a life she'd carefully constructed, stable, predictable, safe. During her lunch break, she retreated to the small office in the back. From her desk drawer, she pulled out a worn photograph. It showed a younger version of herself, laughing, as a tall man with Theo's eyes wrapped his arms around her waist. Behind them stood Boston Medical Center, where they'd both been working when they met, she as a hospital administrator, he as a promising cardiology fellow. Benjamin Walsh. Even thinking his name after all these years made her heart race. They'd had 6 perfect months together before his research fellowship in Switzerland came through. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, one he'd worked toward for years. When she discovered she was pregnant 2 weeks after he'd left, she made the decision that had shaped the last 12 years of her life, to let him go, to raise their child. Alone, the bell above the shop door jingled, pulling her back to the present. Josephine tucked the photo away and returned to her carefully constructed life, unaware that by this time tomorrow, the walls between her past and present would come crashing down. The collapse it began with a single misstep during the regional chess tournament. Theo had been hunched over the board, 3 moves away from checkmate, when his hand suddenly froze midair. The plastic piece clattered to the floor as he clutched his chest, his face draining of color before he collapsed beside the tournament table. Josephine would later recall only fragments of the next hour, the tournament director calling for help, the wail of approaching sirens, Theo's pale face against the stretcher, the paramedics' rapid-fire questions. "Has this happened before?" "No, never." "Any family history of heart problems?" She hesitated. I don't know. I need to get him." 2. Pacific Northwest Medical Center. It's the closest cardiac facility. The ambulance ride stretched into an eternity of beeping monitors and whispered medical terminology. Theo drifted in and out of consciousness, his breathing labored. When they finally arrived at the emergency department, Josephine ran alongside. the stretcher until a nurse gently but firmly directed her to the registration desk. They're taking him to pediatric cardiac care. Dr. Walsh is on call today. He's the best cardiologist in the state, the nurse assured her. The name hit Josephine like a physical blow. Couldn't be. Not here. Not now. But Washington was a big state, she reasoned desperately. Surely there were many cardiologists named Walsh. As she completed paperwork with trembling hands, medical staff rushed around her. A resident approached, introduced himself, and explained they suspected an arrhythmia, potentially a congenital condition. Family history is crucial in these cases, he pressed. Anything on either side we should know about? The walls seemed to close in. His father, she began, then stopped. I don't have that information. The resident nodded without judgment and hurried back to the treatment area. Josephine sank into a waiting room chair, her mind racing. If Benjamin was indeed here, and if Theo's condition was genetic, ... hours passed in agonizing slowness. Finally, a nurse led her to a consultation room, where a doctor would update her on Theo's condition. Josephine paced the small space, rehearsing what she might say if faced with the man she'd walked away from 12 years ago. The door opened, and time stopped. Benjamin Walsh stood before her, older but unmistakable. The same intense green eyes. Now, behind stylish glasses, the same dark hair, now with distinguished touches of silver at the temples. He wore a white coat with Dr. Benjamin Walsh, director of pediatric cardiology, embroidered on the pocket. He glanced down at his tablet, then up at her. Miss Carter, I'm Dr. Walsh. I've been treating your son. No recognition flickered in his eyes. 12 years had changed her tooth, the long chestnut hair now cut to her shoulders. The college student, now a woman approaching 40. Benjamin, she whispered. He blinked, confusion crossing his features, then dawning realization. Josie. The tablet lowered slowly. I didn't. He shook his head in disbelief. You're Theo's mother. How is he? She asked, unable to address the larger question hanging between them. Benjamin visibly shifted back into doctor mode, though his eyes never left her face. Theo has a long QT syndrome, a condition that affects the heart's electrical system. It's causing dangerous arrhythmia of irregular heartbeats. We've stabilized him for now, but he'll need ongoing treatment. Will he be okay? With proper management, yes. But Ms. Carter Josie, Benjamin's professional demeanor faltered. This condition is genetic, heritable. I need to know if there's any family history. The moment had come. Josephine took a deep breath. Yes, she said. There is. Your mother had a heart condition, didn't she? You told me once that she needed a pacemaker when she was only 40. Benjamin went completely still. How would you know that? Unless his eyes widened as the implications sank in. Theo is ... He's 11, isn't he? Quickly calculated backwards. 11 years ago I was in Switzerland. 12 years, she corrected softly. He'll be 12 next month. Benjamin sank into a chair, his professional composure cracking. Why didn't you tell me? The question came out as barely a whisper. Before she could answer, the door burst open. A nurse appeared, breathless. Dr. Walsh, the patient showing signs of ventricular tachycardia again. We need you now. Benjamin was on his feet instantly, doctor mode reinstated. At the doorway, he turned back to Josephine. This isn't over. But right now, I need to help our son. Our son. The words hung in the air as he disappeared down the hallway, leaving Josephine alone with the weight of her long-kept secret finally laid bare. Critical hours, the pediatric cardiac ICU hummed with the steady rhythm of life-sustaining machinery. Benjamin stood at Theo's bedside, studying the monitors with the critical eye of a specialist, while simultaneously searching the boy's features. For traces of himself? The resemblance was undeniable. Theo had his eyes, his jawline, even the same cowlick at the crown of his head that Benjamin had battled his entire life. A son. He had a son. Your numbers are looking better, Benjamin said, keeping his voice professionally steady as he adjusted Theo's. 4. The boy was awake now, groggy but alert. Are you the doctor who fixed my heart? Theo asked, his voice small against the beeping monitors. Benjamin nodded. For now? but we're going to need to work together to keep it running smoothly. Mom says I got the good parts of her brain and the weird parts of my dad's. Theo's innocent comment landed like a blow. Did you know him? Benjamin felt a rush of emotions he couldn't possibly untangle in that moment. Let's focus on getting you better first, okay? Your mom's just getting some coffee. She'll be back soon. As if summoned, Josephine appeared in the doorway, her face drawn with exhaustion. Their eyes met over Theo's bed, a silent acknowledgement of the conversation they needed to have. Dr. Walsh wants to run some more tests, she told Theo smoothly, playing the role of just another parent talking to her child's doctor. I'm going to go with him for a few minutes to discuss them. Nurse Patel will stay with you. In the small consultation room, the pretense fell away. Benjamin paced while Josephine sat rigidly in a chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. 12 years, he said finally. 12 years, Josie, I know. Were you ever going to tell me? She looked up at him, her eyes swimming with unshed tears. I don't know. I wanted to so many times. Then why didn't you? The question burst from him with more force than he intended. You were in Switzerland, about to start the fellowship you'd worked toward your entire career. We'd only been together 6 months. She shook her head. What was I supposed to say? Congratulations on achieving your dream, by the way. I'm pregnant. Yes. Benjamin stopped pacing to face her. That's exactly what you should have said. Was in. Then what? You'd give up everything you'd worked for? Or I'd move to Switzerland? Have a baby alone while you worked 100-hour weeks? Or we'd try long-distance parenting across continents? She stood, matching his intensity. I made the choice I thought was best for everyone. Best for everyone? His voice rose. Best for who? Josie? Not for Theo, who grew up without a father. Not for me, who missed 11 years of my son's life. And clearly not for you, raising him alone. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dr. Larson, the hospital's geneticist, entered with test results. That confirmed what they already suspected. Theo had inherited long QT syndrome from Benjamin's side of the family. The good news, Dr. Larson explained, is that knowing the genetic variant allows us to tailor his treatment precisely. Dr. Walsh. Given your family history, I'd recommend genetic counseling for you as well. When they were alone again, the anger had drained from Benjamin, replaced by a profound sadness. My mother's condition didn't appear until her 40s. I never thought. You couldn't have known, Josephine said softly, but I should have been tested. If I'd known about my own genetic status, if I'd known about Theo... He trailed off, the implications hanging heavily between them. Benjamin, I don't want to talk about us right now, he interrupted. I need to focus on Theo. He's going to need an implantable cardioverter-defibrillator. I've asked Dr. Rodriguez to perform the surgery. She's the best, and I'm too personally involved now. Josephine nodded, understanding the shift back to the medical emergency at hand. But as Benjamin turned to leave, she caught his arm. There's something you should know, she said. I've told him stories about you. Not by name, and not that you're his father, but he knows you're someone who saves lives, someone who's brilliant and kind. I never wanted him to think he wasn't wanted. Something in Benjamin's expression softened slightly. Is that true? Every word, she hesitated. I kept the truth from him, but I never lied about who you are. For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of 12 years and countless what-ifs suspended between them. Then Benjamin straightened, his professional demeanor returning. Theo's surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning, he said. We should get back to him. He needs both of us now. As they walked back to the ICU, their steps fell into rhythm, tentative, cautious. But moving forward together for the first time in over a decade. Reconciliation 3, days after Theo's successful surgery. Josephine stood by the window of his hospital room, watching the sunset paint the Seattle skyline in shades of gold and pink. Behind her, Benjamin was explaining to Theo how his new implantable and cardioverter defibrillator worked. He's using a model and simple diagrams that transformed complex medical concepts into something an 11-year-old could understand. So it's like having my own personal paramedic inside me all the time, Theo asked, fascinated rather than frightened by the device now implanted in his chest. "That's exactly right," Benjamin replied, his voice warm with approval. "It monitors your heart rate, and if it detects an abnormal rhythm, it delivers a small electrical shock to reset it." "Cool. Can I feel when it does that?" "You might. Some people describe it as a hiccup or a thump. But remember, it's only going to activate if it needs to." Josephine marveled at how quickly they'd bonded over the past few days. Benjamin had maintained his professional distance during Theo's treatment, but in the quieter moments, their shared intellectual curiosity had created a natural bridge. Theo had no idea this kind. Patient-doctor was his father, but the connection was undeniable. A nurse appeared to check Theo's vital signs, and Benjamin motioned Josephine to join him in the hallway. "Dr. Rodriguez says he can go home tomorrow," he said. "His recovery is proceeding exactly as expected." "That's wonderful news." She hesitated. "Benjamin, I've been thinking about what happens next, about telling Theo the truth." Complex emotion flickered across his face. "I've been thinking about nothing else." They found themselves in the hospital's garden courtyard, a small oasis of calm in the midst of medical urgency. For several minutes, they sat in silence on a stone bench, the evening air cooled against their skin. "I was so angry at first," Benjamin finally said. "I kept thinking about all the moments I missed his first steps, first words, first day of school." "I'm sorry," Josephine whispered. "I convinced myself I was being selfless, but maybe I was just afraid." "Afraid of what? That you'd resent us for disrupting your life? Or worse, that you'd give up everything for us and then regret it?" She twisted her hands in her lap. "Your work was saving lives even then. How could I ask you to choose?" Benjamin was quiet for a long moment. "I would have chosen both of you," he said finally. "We could have found a way." "I see that now," she admitted. "I was 25 and terrified. I thought I had to make this enormous decision all at once, all alone. And now, you still making decisions alone?" The question hung between them, loaded with implication. "No," she said firmly. "Theo deserves to know who his father is, and you deserve to be in his life." Relief washed over Benjamin's features. "Thank you." He paused. "How do we tell him?" They talked long into the evening, planning the conversation that would forever change their son's life. They agreed to tell him together, to answer all his questions honestly, and to reassure him that both of them wanted only what was best for him. The next morning, Theo sat propped up in his hospital bed, officially cleared for discharge. Josephine and Benjamin sat on either side of him, exchanging a nervous glance over his head. "Theo," Josephine began gently, "there's something important, Dr. Walsh, and I need to tell you." Theo looked between them, suddenly serious. "Is it about my heart? Is something else wrong?" "No, buddy. Your heart is doing great," Benjamin assured him. "This is about who I am." "You're my doctor," Theo said, confusion evident in his expression. Benjamin took a deep breath. "I am your doctor, but I'm your father." Theo's eyes widened, darting between the two adults. "My father? But you said my dad was someone who went away to help people. Someone who didn't know about me." "That's true," Josephine confirmed. "Dr. Walsh, Benjamin, was doing important medical research in another country when I found out I was pregnant with you. I never told him about you, and that was my mistake." "You didn't know about me?" Theo asked Benjamin directly, his voice small. "Not until 3 days ago, when you came into this hospital," Benjamin answered honestly. "If I had known, I would have been there for you from the beginning." A complex mix of emotions crossed Theo's young face: confusion, wonder, hurt, and something like hope. "So you didn't leave because you didn't want me?" "Never," Benjamin said firmly, blinking back tears. "I would have wanted you more than anything in the world." Theo fell silent, processing this revelation with the same careful consideration he applied to his beloved science problems. Finally, he looked up at Benjamin with Josephine's analytical gaze. "That's why I have your eyes," he said simply. "And that's why I got sick like your mom did." Benjamin nodded, amazed at his son's perceptiveness. "That's right. Does this mean ... Ah! Theo hesitated, as if afraid to voice the question. Does this mean I'll get to see you sometimes? After we go home? The question broke something open. Benjamin's chest. That's what you want? I would like that very much. Me too, Theo said, a cautious smile forming. Then he looked at his mother. Is that okay? Josephine reached for her son's hand, and after a moment's hesitation for Benjamin's. As well, more than okay, she assured him. We're going to figure this out together. New beginnings. 6 months later, Josephine stood in her kitchen, watching through the window as Benjamin helped Theo adjust the telescope they'd set up in the backyard. The autumn evening was unusually clear, perfect for stargazing, an activity that had quickly become their shared passion. She could hear Theo's excited voice carrying through the open window as he pointed out constellations to his father. His father. The term had grown more natural over the months, though the path hadn't always been smooth. There had been difficult conversations, moments of resentment that flared unexpectedly, and the logistical challenges of integrating Benjamin into their established life. After extensive discussion, Benjamin had accepted a position at the regional hospital 30 minutes from Heron Bay. Relocating from Seattle to be closer to Theo, he'd rented a small house just a few blocks away, close enough for frequent visits, but maintaining the separate spaces they all needed while navigating their new reality. The doorbell rang, interrupting Josephine's thoughts. She opened it to find Dr. Rodriguez, Theo's surgeon, holding a bottle of wine. Am I too early? Asked. Perfect timing, Josephine assured her, welcoming her in. Over the past months, Elena Rodriguez had become a friend as well as Theo's doctor, her warmth and wisdom a stabilizing force during the family's transition. The astronomers are still setting up, Josephine explained, gesturing toward the backyard. Benjamin insists they need to align the telescope precisely before dinner. Elena smiled knowingly. Some things never change. That man's attention to detail is legendary at the hospital. Tell me about it. You should see how he organizes Theo's medication schedule. Josephine laughed, but there was genuine appreciation in her voice. The dinner party had been Theo's idea, celebration of his 6-month heartiversary as he called it, he'd insisted. On inviting the medical team that had saved his life, along with David and his wife, and Josephine's assistant from the bookstore. As Josephine and Elena prepared the final touches for dinner, Benjamin and Theo came in from the backyard, faces flushed with excitement. Mom, we saw Saturn's rings, Theo exclaimed. Dad says after dinner, Jupiter might be visible too. Benjamin's eyes met Josephine's over their son's head, a quiet acknowledgement of the simple joy in hearing Theo use the word dad so naturally now. Dinner was a lively affair, with Theo at the center, proudly showing off both his cardiac knowledge and his expanding astronomical expertise. When the meal was finished, he tugged at Benjamin's sleeve. Can we show Dr. Rodriguez the telescope now? As the group migrated to the backyard, Josephine found herself alone with Benjamin for a moment. In the kitchen. He's thriving, Benjamin said softly. Watching their son through the window, as he enthusiastically explained the telescope to their guests. He is, she agreed. Having you in his life has been ... transformative. Benjamin turned to face her. Is for you? How's it been for you, Josie? The question hung between them, weighted with months of careful navigation around their own relationship. They had focused exclusively on co-parenting, deliberately avoiding examination of the feelings that sometimes sparked in quiet moments, like this one. Unexpected, she answered honestly. It's challenging, but also ... right, somehow. Like we're finally on the path we were meant to find years ago. Benjamin's expression softened. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. About paths not taken and whether they can still be found. What do you mean? He took a step closer. I mean that I'm grateful every day for Theo and for the chance to be his father. But lately, I've been wondering if there might be more. For Usa and Mabond, just co-parenting. Josephine felt her heart quicken. I'm not suggesting we rush into anything, he clarified quickly. We're still getting to know each other again. But I think there's something here worth exploring, if you're willing. Before she could respond, Theo burst back into the kitchen. Mom, Dad, you're missing Jupiter? Benjamin smiled at his son. We'll be right there, buddy. As Theo raced back outside, Benjamin offered his hand to Josephine. What do you say? Ready to do some exploring? Josephine looked at his outstretched hand, then up at his face, the face she'd once loved, now older and wiser, but still fundamentally the same man. The man who had forgiven her, who had embraced fatherhood with wholehearted devotion, who was now offering a chance at the future they might have had. She placed her hand in his. "I think I've kept you waiting long enough." Together, they stepped out into the starlit backyard, where their son waited eagerly to show them the wonders of the night sky, a family finding their constellation at last. Their separate orbits finally aligned into something whole and bright and full of possibility.